Friend, I want you to sit with me for a little while. There is no hurry. There is no place we need to be just yet. I want to talk to you the way an old friend talks, slowly and plainly, without trying to dress things up or make them prettier than they are. I want to talk to you about something that most people do not like to talk about very much, and that is the feeling of being alone. Now, I know that word alone can carry a cold weight when you first hear it. It can feel like a door closing, like the last light going out in a window across the road. I know that feeling. I have known it for a long time. And if you are sitting here with me right now, if these words have found their way to you, then I suspect you know it too. Maybe you have been sitting with that feeling for quite a while now. Maybe it's settled in on you quietly, the way frost settles on the ground before you even notice the cold has come. But I want to tell you something, and I want you to hear it gently, the way I mean it. That feeling you carry, that loneliness, it is not a sign that something has gone wrong with you. It is not a punishment. It is not a wall that was built to keep you out of life. I have come to believe, after many long and quiet years of my own, that loneliness is one of the ways that life chooses to speak to us. It is one of the ways that life deepens inside a person. Now, I did not always understand that. When I was younger, I felt the weight of being alone like a stone in my chest. I did not have easy words for it back then. I did not know how to make peace with the quiet. When the room was empty and the fire burned low and the dark settled in around the corners, I felt as though the world had turned its back on me. I am not going to pretend otherwise. I am not going to tell you that it was simple or that I was strong all the time. I was not. There were nights that were very hard to get through, but I kept on. And over time, slowly, the way a river slowly carves its way through stone, I began to understand something. I began to understand that the quiet places in a life, the places where we feel most alone, those are often the places where we do our deepest growing. Not the loud places, not the places full of celebration and noise. The quiet places, the still ones, the ones that make you sit down and really look at yourself. You see, when you are surrounded by other people, by their voices and their needs and their opinions, you can go a very long time without ever really meeting yourself. You can go day after day, year after year, filling up the hours with the company of others, and never once sit still long enough to hear what is going on inside your own heart. The noise of the world has a way of drowning out the quiet voice that lives inside each one of us. And that quiet voice matters. That quiet voice is the truest part of who you are. Loneliness, when it comes, clears away some of that noise. It creates a kind of stillness that is uncomfortable at first, yes, but that is also full of something important. In that stillness, you begin to hear yourself again. You begin to remember things about yourself that you had set aside. You begin to notice what you really believe, what you really feel, what you really value, when no one is there to tell you what you ought to believe or feel or value. I think of it something like this. Think of a field after a long, hard rain. For a while, everything looks muddy and ruined. The paths are washed out. The ground is soft and uncertain underfoot. You might look at that field and think, well, nothing good can come of this. But beneath the surface, something is happening. The water is soaking deep into the earth. The roots are drinking. The seeds that have been lying dormant are beginning to stir. And in a little while, when the sun comes back out and the ground firms up again, you will see a kind of green and living growth that would never have come without the rain. Loneliness is something like that rain. It soaks into the deep places of a person. And while it is happening, it does not feel good. I want to be honest with you about that. It does not feel like growth. It feels like loss. It feels like something has been taken away. But what is really happening if you can let yourself be still inside it, rather than fight it every moment, is that you are deepening. You are becoming more of who you truly are. Now, I want to say something to you about patience, because what I am describing takes time. It does not happen in an afternoon. It does not happen in a week. The deepening that loneliness can bring about in a person, that is the work of months and sometimes years. And I know that is not easy to hear when you are in the middle of a hard stretch. When you are sitting in a quiet house and the day feels very long and the phone does not ring and the people you used to see have moved away or passed on, the last thing you want to hear is that this will take time. But I want to ask you to be patient with yourself. I want to ask you to extend to yourself the same kindness that you would give to someone else who was going through a hard time. If a dear friend came to you and said, "I am so lonely. I do not know what to do with myself," you would not say to that friend, "Well, you ought to be over this by now." You would sit with that friend. You would pour a cup of something warm and you would say, "I hear you. Take your time. You are going to be all right." That is what I am saying to you now. Take your time. You are going to be all right. Life does not always move at the pace we would choose for it. There are seasons when everything seems to slow down, when the days stretch out long and quiet, when the progress we hoped for seems very distant. I have been through seasons like that, many of them. And what I learned, what I keep on learning, is that slow is not the same thing as stopped. Moving gently, moving carefully, moving at the pace that is right for where you are, that is still moving. That is still forward. I have never been a fast mover. I have never been the kind of man who races ahead without looking where his feet are going. I have always been more of a careful sort, a deliberate sort. Some people have seen that as a weakness, I know, but I have come to understand it differently. When you move slowly and deliberately, you notice things. You take in more of the world around you. You do not rush past the things that matter. And most importantly, you do not lose what you have already gained. You do not go backward. You may go slow, but you keep your footing. There is a kind of wisdom in that. There is a kind of strength in the person who does not give up just because the road is long. The person who sits down in the middle of a hard season and says, "I am going to stay right here until I have understood what this season is teaching me, and then I am going to get up and keep going." That person may not get very far very fast, but they get somewhere real. They get somewhere that belongs to them. They build a kind of inner life that cannot easily be taken away. And that brings me back to loneliness, because I think this is one of the things that loneliness teaches, if we let it. It teaches us what belongs to us. It teaches us what is truly ours and what we were only borrowing from other people. When the company falls away, when the noise quiets down, when you are left with just yourself for a while, you begin to find out what you are actually made of. You begin to discover what is solid and what was only show. That is not comfortable. I will not pretend it is. Looking honestly at yourself, sitting still with yourself without any distraction, that takes a kind of courage that people do not talk about very often. We talk a lot about the courage of action, about standing up and speaking out and moving forward in the face of danger. But there is another kind of courage that is just as real and just as hard. It is the courage to be still. It is the courage to sit quietly with your own life and look at it without flinching. Most people spend a great deal of their lives running from that kind of stillness. They fill up every quiet moment with something, with talk, with noise, with distraction, with busyness. And that is understandable. The quiet can feel very uncomfortable. When everything is still, all the things you have been not quite thinking about have a chance to come forward. The questions you have been pushing aside, the griefs you have been trying not to feel, the hopes you gave up on a long time ago but never quite made peace with. When you are lonely, those things come forward, and that can be hard. It can feel like being ambushed. But I want to tell you that those things are not your enemies. That grief you have been carrying, it deserves to be felt. Those old hopes, they deserve to be honored, even if they did not come to pass the way you wanted them to. That question you keep pushing away because it feels too big, it deserves your honest attention. These are the things that make up a life. And a life that has been honestly examined, honestly felt, is a deeper and richer life than one that has been kept busy and distracted all the way through. I think about the people I have known who went through great stretches of loneliness and came out the other side different, not hardened, not bitter. That is one way loneliness can go if a person sets their jaw against it and refuses to let it teach them anything. But the people I am thinking of came out softer in a way, and more understanding, more patient with other people, more willing to sit with someone else in their pain without rushing to fix it or explain it away. Because when you have sat alone in the dark and been afraid, you know what it feels like when someone else is sitting there. You do not need to be told. You recognize it from the inside. And that recognition, that knowing, is one of the most valuable things one human being can offer to another. It is not a book you can read. It is not a lesson you can learn in a classroom. It is something that only comes through experience. And loneliness, as hard as it is one of the experiences that builds it. So when I say that life deepens through loneliness, this is part of what I mean. I mean that the person who has lived through real loneliness and has not turned away from it has a depth of understanding that goes beyond what most words can reach. They have been to a place inside themselves that most people never visit. And having been there, they carry something with them, a kind of quiet knowing, a tenderness toward other people that is genuine and earned. I want to talk with you for a little while about the people we have loved and lost. Because I know that for many who find themselves lonely later in life, the loneliness has a particular shape to it. It is shaped like the people who are no longer there. The companion who sat in that chair across from you, the friend who used to call, the children who grew up and moved far away, the life you built with another person, slowly and carefully over many years, and then one day found yourself on the other side of, alone. That kind of loneliness is one of the deepest there is. It carries within it not just the absence of company, but the presence of memory. Every quiet moment is also a moment full of what used to be. You go to make a cup of coffee and you reach for 2 cups without thinking, and then you stop. You hear something outside that would have made the other person laugh and you turn to share it, and there is no one there to turn to. That kind of loneliness has a particular weight. It sits differently on the chest than other kinds. And I am not going to tell you that this kind of loneliness is easy to bear or that there is a simple way through it. There is not. Some grief is just grief, and it asks to be carried for a long time before it lightens. But I will tell you this, the love that was behind that grief, the love that makes the empty chair so hard to look at, that love does not go away when the person goes. It stays. It lives in you. It has shaped who you are in ways that cannot be undone. You are partly made of the people you have loved. The way you think, the way you care for others, the things you find beautiful, the things you cannot tolerate. These have been formed in part by the people who walked alongside you through the years. They have left their mark on you in ways both large and small, and that means they have not entirely left. They are still present in the person you have become. Now, I know that is not the same as having them here. I am not trying to diminish the real and present ache of their absence. I am only trying to say that the love you gave and received that did not vanish, it went somewhere. It became part of the fabric of who you are. And when you sit quietly in your loneliness and feel that grief, you're also, in some way, sitting quietly with all the love that was part of your life. The two things live together, the grief and the gratitude, the emptiness and the fullness. I have found that when I allow myself to sit with both of those things at once, when I do not try to choose between feeling the loss and honoring what was good, something in me becomes a little more settled. Not happy, exactly, but settled. There is a rightness to it. This is what a life lived alongside other people looks like from the inside. It looks like love and loss held in the same hands at the same time. Let me say something to you about purpose, because I think this is another thing that loneliness can clarify, if we let it. When we are busy and surrounded and in the middle of all the usual demands of life, we often do not stop to ask ourselves what we are really here for. There is not time. There is always something that needs doing, someone who needs something, some obligation pulling us forward. And purpose in those times can feel like something that will sort itself out eventually, something we will get around to thinking about later. But when the busy time passes, when the children are grown and the work is done and the days open up long and quiet in front of you, purpose becomes a more pressing question. What am I here for now? What is left for me to do? What is the shape of this part of my life, and how do I fill it with something that matters? These are good questions. These are honest questions. And the fact that they can feel frightening does not mean they are bad to ask. It means they are real. It means you are taking your life seriously. And I would rather a person take their life seriously in the quiet of their own home than sail through it on the surface of other people's expectations. I want to gently suggest to you that purpose does not always look the way we expect it to. We are accustomed to thinking of purpose in terms of grand things, important things, things that other people can see and measure and admire. We think purpose means leaving a large mark on the world. But I have lived long enough to know that some of the most purposeful lives are lived very quietly. Some of the most important work a person does, no one ever sees. The quiet act of being present to another person in their pain. The patience that holds a family together through a hard season. The gentle word offered at the right moment to someone who was about to give up. The steady, faithful attention given to a small and ordinary life day after day without complaint, without seeking recognition. These things matter. They matter as much as anything else. And in your loneliness, you may find that purpose takes a new shape. It may become smaller and quieter than it used to be, but no less real. Perhaps it is the letter you write to someone who has been on your mind. Perhaps it is the listening ear you offer to a neighbor who needs to talk. Perhaps it is the garden you tend, the bread you bake, the small, beautiful things you make with your hands. Perhaps it is simply the quality of attention you bring to each ordinary day. The decision to notice what is good and to be grateful for it. These things are not nothing. In fact, they are very much something. They are the stuff that a life is made of when you get down to the heart of it. Not the big moments, though those matter too, but the small, faithful, day-by-day choices to stay present, to stay kind, to stay open to whatever goodness the day might offer. Those choices, made slowly and steadily over time, add up to something real. They add up to a life that has been genuinely lived. Now, I want to speak to you a little about the body and the spirit, because I think when we are lonely, both of these things need tending. The body has a way of reflecting what is happening inside a person. When the spirit is low, the body can feel heavy and slow. The appetite can go. Sleep can be hard to find. The simple acts of caring for yourself, eating, moving, resting, getting out of the house, even when you do not particularly feel like it, these can feel very difficult when the loneliness is deep. But I want to encourage you to tend to these things. Not because they will fix everything, they will not. But because taking care of yourself is an act of respect toward the life you have been given. It is a way of saying, I am still here. This life still matters. I am going to show up for it as best I can, even on the hard days. Walk outside when you can, even if it is only a short way. Notice the weather. Notice the season. Notice the particular quality of the light at different times of day. The world is full of small and genuine beauties, and they are available to anyone who takes the time to look. A cloud moving across the sky, the sound of rain on a roof, the first warmth of the sun after a long, cold stretch. These things are not grand or dramatic, but they are real, and they are offered to all of us freely without condition. Let yourself be moved by them. Let yourself feel the simple pleasure of a warm room on a cold day, of a good cup of something, of a book that speaks to you in just the right way. Pleasure is not frivolous. It is one of the ways that life announces itself, one of the ways that something in us stays awake and responsive to the world. Do not feel guilty for enjoying a quiet moment. Do not feel that you have to earn the right to feel all right. You have already earned it. You have been walking this road for a long time. You have carried a great deal. You deserve to let yourself rest and to let yourself find pleasure in the small and genuine things that are within reach. I want to also say something about the people who are still in your life, because even when loneliness is deep, there are usually some people, even if only a few. And those few deserve your attention and your care, and you deserve theirs. Sometimes when we are lonely, we pull back from the people who are still there. The loneliness itself can make us feel like we are not worth reaching out to, like we would be a burden, like it is easier to stay quiet and hope that someone else will make the first move. But I want to gently push back against that. I want to encourage you to reach toward the people who are in your life, even if the reaching feels awkward, even if you are not sure how it will be received. Write the letter, make the call, accept the invitation, even if the idea of going out seems very tiring. Because connection with other people, even small and simple connection, is one of the things that keeps us alive inside. It reminds us that we are still part of something, still part of the great and ordinary community of human beings who are all in their own ways trying to find their way through. And you may find that reaching out does something unexpected. You may find that the other person was waiting for just that kind of reaching. You may find that they were sitting in their own loneliness, feeling just as you did, wondering if anyone would notice, wondering if they mattered. And when you reach toward them, you give them the gift of being seen. And in giving that gift, you often find it coming back to you. Human beings need each other. That is simply the truth of what we are. We are not built for pure isolation. We are built for warmth and for company and for the feeling of being known by someone. And even when the great loves of our lives have passed on, even when the world is much quieter than it used to be, the need for connection does not go away. It may become quieter itself. It may ask for less than it once did, but it is still there, and it still deserves to be tended. So, tend it. With whatever energy you have, and in whatever ways are available to you. Tend the relationships that remain. Be patient with the differences between you and the people around you. Everyone is carrying something. Everyone is making their way through a life that is more complicated on the inside than it looks from the outside. Offer kindness where you can. Receive it when it is offered to you. There is something else I want to say, and it has to do with the way we talk to ourselves when we are alone. Because when there is no one else around, the voice inside our own heads can become very loud. And for many people, that voice is not always a kind one. It has a way of pointing out all the things that did not go right, all the ways we fell short, all the regrets and the what-ifs and the if-onlys. It has a way of picking up the weight of the past and laying it out in front of us when we are at our most vulnerable. I want to ask you to listen to that voice with some patience, but also with some firmness. To hear what it has to say, but not to believe everything it tells you. Because the voice of loneliness and low spirits is not always an accurate reporter. It has a tendency to exaggerate the dark and minimize the light. It has a tendency to remember the failures more clearly than the victories, to see the empty spaces more vividly than the full ones. The truth is almost always more balanced then that voice will tell you. The truth is that you have done more good in your life than you probably give yourself credit for. You have loved people and been loved. You have gotten through hard things. You have kept going on the days when keeping going took everything you had. That is not a small thing. That is, in fact, a rather remarkable thing. I have known many people in my life, and I have come to believe that the ones who keep going, the ones who wake up every morning and put their feet on the floor and face another day, even when the days are hard, those are the ones with the most genuine courage. Not the ones who make the grand gestures or the bold announcements. The ones who keep going quietly. The ones who show up for their own lives day after day without making a great show of it. If that is you, if you have been getting up and going on even when it was hard, then you have been doing something brave. Even if it did not feel brave. Even if it just felt like putting one foot in front of the other because there was nothing else to do. That is real. That counts. That matters. Let me come back to the idea of deepening for a moment, because I want to make sure I'm saying this the way I mean it. When I say that loneliness deepens a person, I am not saying that suffering is good for its own sake. I am not saying that pain is something to be sought out or that difficulty is inherently valuable. Some things that are hard are simply hard, and there is no lesson in them except endurance. But what I am saying is that the experience of being alone, of sitting with yourself without the distraction of constant company, has within it the possibility of something real. It has within it the possibility of knowing yourself better, of understanding what you believe and why you believe it, of letting yourself feel the full range of what you feel without editing or performing or managing yourself for the benefit of other people. And that knowing, that honest acquaintance with your own interior life is a kind of richness. It is a kind of fullness. The person who knows themselves well, who has spent time in the quiet and come to some honest understanding of who they are and what matters to them, that person has something solid to stand on. They have a foundation that does not shift every time the wind changes. That foundation is built slowly. It is built in the quiet times. It is built in the hours spent sitting with yourself, thinking things through, feeling your feelings honestly, asking the questions that do not have easy answers. It is not built quickly, and it is not built without some discomfort. But it is built to last, and it is yours. No one can take it from you. I have been thinking as I talk with you about the particular courage it takes to age. And I say this with all the respect I have in me, because I think it is one of the things that does not get talked about enough. There is a great deal of talk in the world about the courage of youth, about starting out, about taking risks, about building something new. And those things do take courage. But there is another kind of courage that I have come to hold in very high regard, and that is the courage of continuing. The courage of a person who has already given so much, who has already been through so much, who has already faced losses and disappointments and the natural shrinking of the world that comes with age, and who chooses every single day to stay engaged, to stay curious, to stay open to what is still good and still possible. To care even when caring costs something. To love even when love has already brought grief and will very likely bring more. That is a remarkable kind of courage. It is not loud or dramatic, it does not announce itself, but it is real, and it is present in the lives of more people than will ever be recognized for it. If you have that courage, and I believe you do, simply by being the kind of person who sits and thinks about these things, then you have something very valuable. You have the deep, quiet strength of a life that has been genuinely lived. You have the knowing that comes from having been through something and come out the other side still intact, still yourself, still capable of feeling and caring and being present to the world. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, a great deal. I want to close with something about hope. Not the bright, loud kind of hope that shouts from the rooftops. The quiet kind. The kind that does not make any promises about how things will turn out, but simply holds the door open a little. The kind that says, I do not know what is coming, but I am going to face it with as much grace and as much kindness as I can manage. The kind that does not require certainty or assurance, but simply the willingness to keep going. That kind of hope is available to every person, regardless of circumstance. It does not depend on things going well. It does not depend on the company of others, or the absence of pain, or the resolution of every difficulty. It is something that lives inside a person, and that can be tended like a small fire, carefully, with patience, so that it does not go out. In the quiet of your loneliness, that fire is still there. You may not always feel it. There will be days when it seems very small indeed, so small that you wonder if it is still burning at all. But it is. It is the part of you that is still curious about tomorrow. It is the part of you that still cares. It is the part of you that is still, even now, asking questions and sitting with them honestly. That fire is what I mean when I talk about life deepening. It is what is happening in the quiet, when you cannot see it. It is the deepening of a person who has been genuinely present to their own life, who has not looked away from the hard parts, who has let themselves be changed by what they have been through, rather than hardened against it. You are that person. You are still being changed, still being deepened, still being shaped by all of it. The years, and the losses, and the quiet hours, and the love that remains. It is all part of the same long, slow, faithful walk. And there is no backward in it. There is only forward, however slowly, however gently, however carefully we go. So let us go gently then, you and I. Let us not rush ourselves or shame ourselves or demand more of ourselves than is honest. Let us be patient with the seasons. Let us tend what is still alive in us. Let us keep our small fires burning, and let us remember, on the quietest and loneliest days, that the quiet itself is not empty. It is full of something we are still, even now, becoming. Take good care of yourself, friend. You are worth the taking care of, and the road ahead, however slow, is still yours to walk.